on September 2nd of this past year, Jackson woke up at about 5 a.m. in the morning. He was complaining about a headache. He came in to tell his mom he had a headache. She thought at that time it was more sinus related, just something normal. She told him to get in the shower. It'll make him feel better. He got into the shower. She turned around for 2 seconds, and then she heard him hit the side of the shower and kind of, lose his legs just a little bit. She got him out of the shower and knew that he was struggling to stand up. So she called for me to come into the bathroom. And, when I first looked at him, I could tell, he was struggling, but he was still okay. Or not, he was still there. She said, we need to get him to the emergency room. And I said, okay. And she handed him to me. And as soon as he got into my arms, he went completely limp. She was getting ready. I sat him down in a chair just to see if he was alert or not. I could tell he was, struggling to breathe and laboring. My wife was ready. I think we put him on the bed and put a pair of shorts on him, and she ran down to the van, and I was carrying him, and I put him into the van, and she was ready to go and just took off. We're probably 10 minutes from St. Mary's. I went back into the house, got, put clothes on, and was right behind, basically right behind them. But even when I got there, I expected to, walk in the emergency room, go back to the room. I expected, maybe they're checking him out, seeing what's going on. Maybe he's got, an IV in him or something like that. But, when they got me back to the room, in the emergency room, he was, there was full activity around him. And at that, right then, he went into cardiac arrest. He wasn't breathing. They had to, shock him. And, they got his heart started again. And, I think for my wife and I, Sandy, I think that was the first time, we're like, what is going on here? It just didn't make sense to us, The day before this, I mean, he's a healthy kid, never complains, never, no issues at all. And, here he is laying there, and, we could just sense that, he's really fighting for his life right there. One of the things, that we noticed there, I mean, it was just organized, what I want to say, almost like organized chaos around him, and a lot of activity, a lot of people knowing exactly what they needed to do and when they needed to do it. They took him for a scan of his brain, and that's when it confirmed that he had an aneurysm, or there was a bleed on the brain. And we were told right then that he was going to be transported to Springfield to St. John's. And we said, okay. My wife said, I'm going with him. They said that he would go by. They would fly him there, and they said they had to explain to us that there would be no room for either one of his parents with him. But we had we sat on the on the helipad there at St. Mary's, and saw him leave, and then had to get in our vehicle and drive to Springfield, not knowing what was waiting for us. Our concerns at that time is he has a sister and 2 brothers. We wanted them to know what was going on and understand what's happening, and even though we didn't know much, we wanted to let them know. And so we made we probably drove 90 miles an hour towards Springfield, both on our phones at the same time. I mean, every unsafe thing you can think of, but that's what it was. As we were getting into Springfield, we received a phone call. It was the neurosurgeon, and said that they were going to have to do emergency surgery right then. They couldn't wait for us, necessarily to be there. So, once we got there, we knew he was already in surgery. It was probably a couple hours. It could have been 6 hours. It could have been, 30 minutes. But it seemed like a couple hours. The neurosurgeon came back for a consult to let us know, what had happened. He explained to us that at that time that it was an AVM that had caused the bleed on the brain. It was something Jackson was born with. He kind of walked us through, he said the prognosis wasn't necessarily good at all. He said, the next, several days would determine, what the outcome might be. But, knowing what we know now, we know we took it as he was, negative but knowing what we know now, it was really a pretty positive prognosis on his part based on what he had seen and his experiences with similar injuries. They got Jackson through the surgery. They took him to the ICU where he was in an induced coma, and for the next day or two. And as parents, all we can do is wait, pray, hope. It was a long 2 days, but we had lots of family, friends, and support, which was very helpful. They actually started physical therapy with Jackson at St. John's, and there it was just a matter of them, helping him move his legs, move his arms, and just seeing what he could do. I know one physical therapy session at St. John's was just a matter of helping him sit up in a wheelchair, and it was an exciting day when, they got him in a wheelchair and they were able to wheel him around the ICU. I mean, that was just, for us, it was just huge but the physical therapy down in St. Louis, it took on a more structured approach, and we're really working on him with his core strength. Yeah, and I think we knew he was going to come to Apex, early on. We said. And they knew he was coming here. So, I mean, they had time, to get to know Jackson a little bit, to know his story, and to know, the things, from a health standpoint, and understand a little bit about who he was. And I think once he got here, I mean, it's been amazing from day one, that it's almost like it's a program tailored for Jackson. It's not only just a 10-year-old boy, but Jackson. And the activities that they have for him. I mean, they have a feel of when to let him have some fun, and but still get work in. When he needs a little bit of a break, and the difference between him being tired and him having a little bit more in the tank. And they've worked with him, again, with the core strength and fun things like boxing, and whether it be Wii boxing or actually hitting a bag, or different things like that. I mean, he comes home worn out, but I know he enjoys being here. One of the first times Jackson came to Apex, is you watch a little bit, but you don't want to I didn't want to be right on top of him and his therapist, so I kind of checked the place out and then found a flyer for physician's choice and read a little bit about it and did a little bit of research and said here's my son that something happened to him that he couldn't control, and here he is doing something to improve his health, to get better, and all those things. And I said, some of the things, health issues that I might have, these are some things that I can control and that I do have control over. I just need to take those next steps. And as I read about physician's choice, I like the aspect of, it was a program that fit me, that I didn't have to think too much. There was a team that supported me. It was, it was a physician endorsed and things like that. And, I think, for Jackson and I and in fact, my oldest son just had his elbow scoped. He's a college baseball pitcher, and he just had surgery down in St. Louis this past week. He'll be doing therapy here at Apex in the next 2 weeks. So, I think our family may be getting some frequent flyer miles out of this.